Pizza delivery drivers of Reddit. What was the most fricked up place you've ever stopped at? I once delivered to a guy living under his porch, if that counts. I drove up to the house. It's pitch black. No lights on. I look at the ticket and it says use back door. I go up the steps and no lights on. Nothing. Then I hear a voice from below me say, "Hey, down here." I look under the porch and there's a small door leading into what looked like a makeshift apartment. I had to actually crouch to get to it. Gave the guy the pizza and bounced the frick out of there. Someone ordered pizzas to a funeral. There were a ton of people there, all somber and dressed in black while I rolled up in my bright red greasy t-shirt. LOL. Definitely one of the most awkward experiences I've had. I didn't end up delivering the pizza, but the address was an abandoned house. It was around dusk and the house was so obviously uninhabited. I could see trees growing through the windows and the backside of the house was crumbling so badly I could see to the backyard from the street. The instructions were to come around back. I double checked the address after locking my doors, called the customer a couple of times, called the store and told them what was up and why I wasn't delivering the pizza, and headed out. I mean, seriously, who would have been dumb enough to go to the back of that house? The neighborhood crack house is blacklisted from every pizza place in my city because drivers would get robbed on every delivery to that address. I was delivering chicken. KFC, not pizza, but my worst stop was pathetic. Really. I knock on the door. I hear a kid yell, "I got it." He opens the door and runs up the stairs yelling to his friends, "The chicken butthole's here. The chicken butthole's here." After which a crowd of about 8 preteens at the top of the stairs start throwing change down the stairs at me to pay for the delivery. I asked if they could hand me the money. They laugh and just throw the quarters, dimes, etc. harder. So I picked up the bag of food, winged it up the stairs at them. It hit the wall, and I split. Told the boss what happened, and if they call to complain I won't listen or apologize. I'll just quit if he brings it up. I found out later he did get a call and told them to get stuffed. Good boss. Flinging the chicken at them must have been satisfying as heck. I delivered to a drug house a few times. It was always obvious that these guys were selling using, but it never bothered me as they usually tipped well. This one time I got there, rang the bell, and a baggie of, I'm guessing, coke or heroin, I have no idea, slipped under the door. Not sure what to do, I decided to kick it back under the door and leave. Not super fricked up, but I think about it a lot. I went to a trap house a couple times. They tipped the best. One night I have a delivery to a pretty rural area. A lot of my deliveries are to rural areas, so no big deal. But tonight it's drizzling and especially dark, so I'm having trouble finding the address of the house I'm looking for. So I roll down the passenger window and use my really freaking bright flashlight, pointing it at mailboxes, trees, posts, anything that somebody might have their address on at the end of their driveway. So I'm driving along at like 5 miles an hour pointing my flashlight when the beam catches a guy wearing a black hoodie at the end of an obviously long gravel road staring directly at me. More of a glare at me, really, but whatever. Could just be on the phone or something. Then it gets weirder. I finally find the address I'm looking for and pull into the drive and hop out of the car. That's when I get the sinking feeling. No cars, no house light, boarded up windows. If you've ever been a delivery person, you know that this is the time to get out of there because you're about to get robbed. Right as I'm about to jump in, throw the car into reverse and note the frick out of there, I see a man walking across the empty field adjacent to the property towards me. Frick. Now I'm a pretty burly, bearded dude, so I don't worry a whole lot on deliveries, but this scared the crap out of me. When he gets closer, I see him very obviously tucking something into his waistband, what I can only assume was a gun. He then says in a thick, menacing southern accent, "I thought you was the law." I guess because of how I was scanning the addresses. I meekly point to my car topper and the pizza in my hand, and he says in the nicest voice you've ever heard, "Oh, great. Thank you so much. Have a great night," pays me, and proceeds to walk back through the open field, in the direction of no buildings, in the rain, with his pizza. For the rest of my shift I couldn't stop whispering, "What the frick? Strangest thing that's ever happened to me. Drug lab in the trees somewhere." Every hoarder house I ever delivered to, honestly, I feel for those folks. There's usually a mental issue that starts it. Sometimes it's just learned behavior. Either way, it's still just sad to me. 1. Extremely large man naked on his bed telling me to come in. I yelled that I wouldn't like to do that and he replied, oh, it's a girl. Why'd they send a girl, as if we knew the situation there. 2. Delivered to a trucker in his rig. Berated me for having a single nose piercing and colored hair because he had a son with all them piercings and all he does is drugs now. Then the man texted me, can I ask you a silly question? I had called him to find his specific rig for the delivery. I ignored and blocked him and he called the store asking for me specially to return and bring him a specific sauce packet. My manager said no and had me stay in the store with the crew until it was time to leave. 3. One woman answered the door in a thong and asked where another delivery driver was. Told her he wasn't working. She replied, well, he knows to always do mine for me. Again tried to explain that he was not present in the store that day. Later found out he was dealing while delivering. Probably many more pizza delivery is a rite of passage in my opinion. So while I was in undergrad, I worked as a pizza delivery driver. I had a delivery to a dodgy part of town with a delicious pie. When I got within a couple miles of the residence, a local sheriff's deputy got in front of me. We made all the same turns. Then as we got closer, another got in front of him and one behind me. I start freaking out a bit as I'd been smoking some weed, but carry on. Finally, we all get to the same residence, which is totally surrounded by police in riot gear, guns drawn, all that crap. I get out with my pizza and discover the house I'm supposed to deliver to is the one with SWAT out in front. One of the officers waves me off and says, he's not gonna need that today, and they proceed to breach the door. To which I return to the car with a free pizza and get the heck out of there. They were added to our do not deliver list, but I don't think we ever heard from them again. First time to a huge mansion that was renowned for big tips, where you had to go around the back to a gate leading to the pool patio. Guy who answered the gate doorbell had been disfigured in some horrible accident. He had me wait while he got his wallet, so I got a good dose of the backyard where a raging party was going on. Drugs being snorted, craziness in the pool, booze bottles everywhere, and it was like midday on a Wednesday. Guy finally comes back, addresses me by name, no name tag, and says, you don't remember me, do you? Knowing that I'd remember those injuries, I realized he must know me from before he got hurt, and I stammered out a weak no, I don't. His response blew me away. He recalled being in first grade with me at a local Catholic school I attended for 1 year. Then, he went on to detail everything about class that year, the people, teachers, activities, and that his accident had happened during the following summer. He'd gone through a windshield in a head-on with a semi. I delivered there a few more times, and hung out chatting with him as long as I could. It slowly became clear that the party crowd was just using him for his money. That was fricked up enough. But what I also eventually realized was that he was stuck in that last normal year he'd lived, and 20 years later, had moved back. If I recall correctly, he'd moved away because his parents died or were severely injured in the accident, as soon as he was old enough to access the accident settlement. And the money was going up that crowd's nose pretty fast. I had no idea how to help him or even if he wanted help, and eventually started letting other drivers take that run. Never saw him again, even though it's a small town. Eventually he stopped ordering pizza and then I left for a job elsewhere, but would pass by his house when visiting while my parents still lived there. Fewer and fewer cars were parked out front every time I went by, and the house slowly became overgrown with ivy. Fricked up. Wow, this is heartbreaking. Drove for a bit when things were rough. Day driving on weekdays meant there were only 2 of us, and we got mostly the business park lunches and the SAHM pool parties, and the latchkey kids after school snacks. There was some interesting stuff we ran into. Brothels ran out of apartments, drug dens out of high-end hotels, but for the most part it was seniors answering the door in boxers or tossing flyers on doors or dealing with snotty brats. There was this one house, though, that made my heart stop every time it came up, which was thankfully rare. Call it instinct or energy or whatever. I hated that house. And because there was only 2 of us, and I was 20 years younger than the other guy, it was usually me. It was the only house on a single lane road. To give you an idea of the dissonance here, the major road this little road was off of housed a new McMansion development within 1 mile, and a sleepy little 1950 style cookie cutter suburbia development a mile in the other direction. It'd be real easy to mistake this road for an access road, especially with how heavily overgrown that area had become. Once you got on this little road, the first 20 feet or so seemed absolutely normal. It's after you turned the bend and the road turned to gravel inevitable that things went batshit. We're talking the road lined with construction worker and Smokey the Bear cutouts wrapped in barbed wire and holding model rifles. Naked store mannequins covered in paintball splatter with BB guns tied to their hands and pointed at the road. Signs every 5 or 10 feet: no trespassing, private property, CCTV recording in progress, you are being watched. No crap, Sherlock. You aren't hiding the cameras. This continued for the next mile, while I wondered if I should be calling my fiance and telling him I loved him. Grateful that it was bright and sunny out. So I get to the gate and call the customer, which was the most normal part of this. Tell him I'm outside. Only be told to not approach the house under any circumstances and do not leave the vicinity of my car. Okay, dude. You know what? I'm intimidated. I'm a 24-year-old woman a mile into the woods at some psycho's house fort with crap reception on my phone just trying to deliver a pizza. So, I get out of my car, take out the pizza bag, and lean against the side of my car and hope that I'm not making the nightly news. Out walks a guy who, I crap you not, is dressed like he walked off a mid-film zit, takes his pizza and wings, tips me $5, and instructs me how to turn my car around. Would rather take the strippers 100 times over that house. The one where they tried to pull me in the house. Not coincidentally the last delivery I ever made. Used to deliver part-time in a not so nice part of town. Used to do a regular delivery to an adult bookstore. My 18-year-old mind was blown the first time I went in and saw all the adult toys and crap hanging on the walls. Another time I delivered to a room at a hot sheet motel. Dude opened the door and while he was counting out the money I saw a naked lady sit up in the bed behind him. According to Pornhub, you joined them. Funnest job I ever had, but man, the crap I saw and went through. The most fricked up delivery had to be when a woman answered with her huge beautiful Siamese cat. I love that breed, so I ask if I can pet him. She says yes. I bend down. The cat purrs, rubs against me, all the usual signs of liking it. So I stand up to finish giving this lady her pizza. The cat lunges and bites me above my right eye, and wraps all 4 limbs around my head. Panic. Freeze. What the heck do I do? What the heck is going on? Why isn't this lady helping me? I grab this demon cat from heck by the front legs and just rip him the frick off of me. As I do, my contact lens pops off. All I can think is that it's eye skin coming off of my eyeball. I throw that sucker down and just freak out at the amount of blood that starts pouring out of my gash. The woman brings me into her house and puts a towel on. I tell her she has to take me to the emergency room or call 911, as I can't see to drive myself. After all, it was her cat who attacked me. She drives me to a minor place. I get stitches and a tetanus shot. She foots the bill. Never see her again. Boss wasn't happy that I missed the rest of the night, or had another order in my car. Frick that cat. Boss wasn't happy that I missed the rest of the night, or had another order in my car. Frick your boss. When you are in a situation where you need to get stitches, anything else can wait. It was outside of town on a dirt road with tall trees. Every house was basically just plywood shacks. There was broken down cars and trash everywhere. The entire neighborhood just reeked of a B-rated horror film. I find the right house and walk up to the door, but it was just a blanket, so I had to yell pizza. They come to the door and grumbled. It was a haggard looking man wearing boxers and a dirty white tank. Something felt wrong as he handed me a bill that looked washed. I held the $100, with old Ben Franklin's face on it, up to the light and could clearly see Abe Lincoln in the paper. They had ordered around $50 worth of pizza and wanted change. He tried convincing me that he went to the bank and they gave him that bill. I asked him why then wrong face was on there and he said that's how they do it. I said heck no and drove away as fast as I could. We stopped taking orders that don't have street roads. As a currency nerd, I applaud how you caught that counterfeit. Many counterfeiting schemes involve removing the ink from a real bill to use the paper for a fake high denomination bill. The latest design $5s have a numeral 5 rather than Lincoln head watermark to make that easier to spot. I worked at Domino's and we had to blacklist a guy because he was obsessed with me. He would come in and ask if I was there. If I wasn't working that day, he would just show up the next. If I was on a delivery, he'd wait around in the store for me. He would tell me that he loved me and ask me out on dates. He was very bad on drugs and made it obvious. The last time I delivered to his house, He ordered about $40 worth of food and drinks, and kept trying to hand me $100 even though I told him numerous times I didn't have the change. He apparently stole his grandma's cell phone and wouldn't give it back, and him and his cousin were screaming at each other the whole time I'm waiting to get the smaller bills he kept telling me he had. He had nothing smaller than a $100 and he kept arguing with me because he changed his mind and just wanted one pizza and a drink, and I told him I couldn't do that. I thought the $100 change was his creepy tip. What a cheapskate stalker. You have been visited by the Cash Chihuahua. Like this video and you will be blessed with the greatest fortune. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.